Human beings love a good story. And I'm a human being. But labels have been used to change my story. Even right now, as you're looking at me, you're thinking, she looks like she could be Spanish, Latinx, or my least favorite, Hispanic. But I assure you, I'm not anybody's panic. And if you think I am, it's because a label was used not just to describe, but to divide and define complete groups of people as only being this one thing. Now, I was possibly 4 or 5 years old when my parents first told me that we were moving to the United States of America. And to a child, that just meant, okay, well, will I have friends there? Will I have people to play with? That was my only concern. And that was possibly the very last time that I lived my life completely unaware that I had labels, and very unaware of the labels the world was about to give me. So you can imagine how thrilled I was when we reached Rockville, Maryland, the suburbs of our nation's capital, and my neighborhood was filled with children. Immediately, I started playing kickball and dodgeball, and I was so happy until one day I noticed one of my neighbors on one side decided to stop playing with me. Until this day, I don't remember their parents or even their faces because they didn't warm up to us very much. As a 6-year-old child, I would internalize this rejection as there must be something wrong with me. I don't know what it is, but it made them not want to play with me anymore. I knew I was different, but the difference was okay. Like, for example, I would open my lunchbox and I would take out this delicious Venezuelan arepa, and my classmates would try to trade with me. I was like, nope, I'm good. I don't need that soggy peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And eventually, I would be a senior in high school, and I would start watching the cheerleaders and doing all the things American kids do. And there was this one cheer, and it was, hey, you know it? Who shakes that best? Hey, you know it from the east to the west. You would think by the way I was memorizing these cheers that I was going to try out for the cheerleading team. But I didn't want to. I wanted to date a cheerleader. And for a 17-year-old child, that revelation was scary, shocking, because it wasn't the story that my family had given me. It wasn't the story that my society gave me or my religion. I just knew that labels had the power to make us feel good about ourselves and bad, but labels also have the power for other people to tell your story in ways that are not correct. What ended up happening is I went to college and I would completely suppress anything that wasn't strictly heterosexual and a very nice Catholic girl. I would make sure to acquire labels that I was proud of. And in college, I had the label of Phi Theta Kappa. I had the label of National Dean's List. And eventually, I had the label of college graduate. Indirectly, this label does tell the world I am educated and perhaps more worthy of opportunities than someone who isn't. That's the story, isn't it? And what ended up happening is I graduated and had no idea how I was going to use this diploma. And that's when I got a letter from the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. And I was going to study musical theater in New York City. My years of voice lessons finally paid off, and my dream of possibly one day being on Broadway, it was very realistic. There was a logical path, and I was following it. However, I was completely ignoring, while I was learning West Side Story by heart, I was completely ignoring the story that was going on in the background. And that was the fact that I was an F1 student. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a visa that expires 1 year after your graduation. and I get a 1-year work permit. I thought to myself, oh, that's no big deal. I had grown up here, so I just thought immigration, when you follow the law, when you do things correctly, when you have something to contribute to society, and you have a clean police record, you're good, you're in. And in 1998, I sent out the paperwork and lots of fees, and I started to wait. 1999 came and went, still no answer. My work permit expired, still no answer. And that's when I realized, oh my God, am I an illegal immigrant? And nobody wants that label. 2000, still no answer. 2001 was finally the year that I would receive the letter from INS. And I opened it as quickly as I could possibly open it. And the letter was short, but it was not very sweet. The letter would say, we have reviewed your case, and we have determined that you have insufficient reasons to remain in the United States. And that was the moment that my American dream officially became my nightmare. In 2001, I would also find myself on the subway level of the World Trade Center on September 11. And if I close my eyes, I remember what that plane sounded like. That was the dream that my whole life crumbled, my country, my dreams of ever being on Broadway, and definitely my identity. For the next 11 years, I would struggle to find a new identity, a new legacy, because if I wasn't going to be on Broadway, who was I going to be? America told me I wasn't American enough. Venezuela didn't think I was one of their own. And if you don't think that labels have the power to change a group of people's story, what does the word Muslim mean to you after September 11? 11 years later, in 2012, 32 years from the first time I came to America, I got another letter. And this one was inviting me to my own citizenship ceremony. So I'm there at the ceremony, and you would think that I was thrilled and excited, but I felt a little bit cheated, like I was invited last to this party. And when the woman takes out the certificate, she says, "Welcome to America." And I must have mumbled, "Yeah, I've always been here." And she kept that smile. And I realized that my story had never been told. Labels have the power to change your story, and it definitely changed mine. When I look at the LGBTQ community, lots of labels, and every day there are new labels. And like I said before, labels by themselves are not the problem. As a writer, it does help tell a story of a person, place, or thing. The problem with labels is when we use them to divide and start defining people as only sharing this one individual story. So I decided that I had to figure out, what is it that makes some people have more value in the eyes of society? Why are some labels in a box of worthiness and other labels, you have to prove yourself human? And it was clear what box I was in. I ran into a term used in marketing and business called perceived value. For those of you who are not familiar with this term, it's the reason that you buy a very expensive purse or a $70,000 Mercedes-Benz. And I started asking myself, is white, male, Christian, and heterosexual the Mercedes-Benz in our society? Is Latin American, immigrant, LGBTQ, female, are we the clunkers in our society? If you do a little research, you'll find out that my middle name is Mercedes. So in 2015, I decided to travel the world because that's what you do when you've been waiting for your citizenship your whole life. And I went everywhere, and I came back with answers. I found out that, yes, we are different. But our differences are very superficial. We have different religions, different languages, of course, different foods, but this is a good thing because who wants to walk into a food court with only one type of food? One day I was writing my first book at a cafe in Paris, and I noticed the commuters going to work, and it looked exactly the same as anywhere else in the world. I came back with a very different perspective. For those of you who may be familiar with my work, I wrote a poem called Criminal of Birth right after I got my rejection letter. And the poem says, I'm red with anger, and white isn't the color of your lies, but I assure you the bruises on my spirit are of the deepest ocean blue. I realized that I was angry, but I also learned how to process that anger. And that's my gift to you tonight. Because what does it feel like when you grow up with 4 labels that are perceived as having less value? You realize that 1, you can let your anger consume you or control you. Or 2, you can learn to bring more light and love and inclusion and diversity to this world. I know that your labels are probably different than mine, but I am 100% sure that there are labels that you attach yourselves to, and there are labels that other people are using to tell your story. And I was tired of people telling it incorrectly. So with 2 or 3 words, I'm going to teach you this tonight. Next time somebody tells you that you need to go back where you came from, that you need to leave because of your nationality, because of the color of your skin, because a difference of opinion, you tell them, I am a human being and I belong. If your family tells you that your lover is not welcomed for Christmas, or your church tells you that you're not welcomed in their building, remind them that your God loves you unconditionally for everything that you are, and we belong. Next time you fill out a job application, and you don't know what box to tick, because they're asking you for your race, ethnicity, astrological sign, blood type, and you wonder, how is this relevant to the job I'm applying for? Remind people that human beings don't belong in boxes or cages of any type, and we all belong. Now, this business of labels, it never ends. I remember finally using this passport that took me 32 years to finally have. So you can imagine when I came back from traveling the world, and I was so happy that I was finally in line of US citizens. The immigration officer taunts me and said to me, but it says here you're Venezuelan. It doesn't matter what labels you use to describe me. We are not a label. So next time somebody tells you, this is America, we speak English here, I want you guys to help me do something. I don't want you to react out of anger, because anger doesn't get us anywhere. So next time somebody uses a label against you, excuse me, reminds them that we are all human beings, and hashtag all humans belong. Thank you.